14th, '08. I am interviewing Mr. Bennie Chapman. He was born on May 16th, 1949. The people attending the interview is Elio Vento and John Fleener. I'm working with the Gail Borden Library and Elgin Academy. What war and branch of service did you serve in?
I served in the Army. In 1967 of January, I entered into the United States Army.
What was your rank in the Army?
My highest rank was E5, that's sergeant.
All right. Where did you serve?
I served in the Republic of Vietnam, Southeast Asia.
What type of work did you serve?
Well, I had several jobs. One of my jobs was, my MOS was 11B 2P. That was airborne infantry. And I also had a secondary MOS, which was 11B F2P. I was a forward observer. Also, I was in the recon, and I also was a weapons specialist. And I was later on in Vietnam put with a helicopter assault team.
Where did you serve?
In the Republic of Vietnam. From 1967 to 1969.
Were you drafted or enlisted?
I enlisted into the military.
Where were you living at the time?
I was living in Chicago, Illinois.
Why did you join?
Well, I joined the military because I was out of school and kind of just hanging out, and I wasn't working or anything, and I wanted to make something out of my life, so I joined the military. January the 16th, 1967.
Why'd you pick the service branch you joined?
That's a good question. It happened to be a recruiting station in my neighborhood, and it was very convenient for me. I didn't really know very much about the different branches of service, so by that recruit station being right there in my community, I joined right there. And it was an Army recruiting station.
Do you recall your first days in service?
Yes, I do. My first day in the military, I had a lot of expectations about what it was going to be like, and when I did join the military, my very first day, it was a very strange to me because I was dealing with a lot of humiliation, and that was part of the training, was to more or less get us focused on being in the military.
What did it feel like?
Well, it felt good to be a part of something.
Tell me about your boot camp experience or training experiences.
Well, in boot camp, I went when I first was inducted into the military. Every place I went was by bus. I left out of Chicago, and the bus took me to Fort Jackson, South Carolina. That's where I did my basic training. From Fort Jackson, South Carolina, I went to Fort Gordon, Georgia, to airborne infantry. That's where I had advanced training, specializing in special weapons and preparing. It was preparing me at that point to get ready to go into combat. From Fort Gordon, Georgia, I went to Fort Benning, Georgia, to jump school, which is a paratrooper school. I was also a paratrooper in the military. Once I completed jump school, I also went to Ranger School at Fort Benning, Georgia. In fact, this is very interesting. I like to mention this. Every place I went when I first went in the military, I went by bus. I had never flew in an airplane in my entire life. The first time I ever got in an airplane, I jumped out it. That was in paratrooper school. And it was an experience I never experienced in my life, you know. There's a quietness up that high in the air, jumping out of a plane that you could not experience just walking down here on the earth. So that was something real nice. From Fort Benning, Georgia, they assigned me to the 101st Airborne Division, and that was in Fort Campbell, Kentucky, where I continually to do my training and make jumps every month, or 2 or 3 jumps a month, whatever they wanted me to do. And they was preparing me to go to Vietnam. Also, I had the opportunity to make a jump in Seoul, Korea. It was a training expedition type thing that they was doing for the Ranger training that I experienced.
Do you remember any of your instructors?
Yes, I do. I remember. I remember my first sergeant who went to Vietnam with me. In fact, he got wounded the same day I got wounded. And I'm not for sure, but I think he lost his eye when he got wounded, or he was blinded or something. But I knew it had something to do with his face when he got wounded. And I remember him very vividly because he was a tall man like myself, and he was a black man. And I never knew what would happen to him because we were separated when we was put in the hospital.
How'd you get through it?
Well, I remember this guy from Chicago. When they told me I was going to Vietnam, they gave me 13-day leave, which is like liberty, to go home and spend with your family or whatever, and then you are to report back. I remember getting on the bus, the Greyhound bus coming home from Fort Campbell, Kentucky, for the 13-day leave, and I met this guy on the bus, and he was also from Chicago. And what was so strange about it, he is a twin, and I also have a twin brother. And we rode the bus together to Chicago, and I did my time, my 13 days, he did his, and then we reported back to Fort Campbell, Kentucky. I never seen him again until I got into Southeast Asia, and that's Vietnam. And I remember after the first maybe 60 to 90 days of being in country, I run into him. And when I ran into him, I just got orders, and we'd just been orientated about this area that we was going in to fight. And I was feeling kind of a little bit afraid. I said, well, I'm going someplace where I'd never been before. And I remember that the instructions that we got, that this area has about 2 regiments of NVA soldiers, and it's heavy booby-trapped. And I remember talking to the guy that I came home with on pass, and we leaned up against a machine gun bunker, And we leaned there, and I looked at him, and he looked at me. And my words that came out of my mouth was, how is we going to make it through this? Because I had all this equipment on. I was carrying an M16 machine gun, an M79 grenade launcher, a white phosphorus grenade, 4 pineapple grenades, bandoliers, and clips, and all of my field equipment. And you know, I remember having a little fear of being afraid, you know, of something unknown that I didn't know what was going to happen. And I got through it, you know, which was a good thing.
Where exactly did you go?
In Vietnam?
Yeah.
Well, in Vietnam, first, when I entered country, I came into a Third Corps, which is South Vietnam. I came in through a place called Bennie. From Bennie, I went to into the Delta area. My first place I started fighting was in a place called Cu Chi, and they call it the Hobo Woods, and I fought at the Black Virgin Mountains up around Cu Chi in the Delta area. From there, my unit became air mobile. What it was that we had helicopter assault teams, and they moved us up north into I Corps. I think the first place I started fighting up north was in Da Nang, a place called Marble Mountain. We was doing ambushes there, and by me being with a helicopter assault team, I was able to go. They was able to move us a lot faster into all different areas to fight and support other units in those areas. So when I got up north, I was at a place. I was in Da Nang, Chu Lai, Phu Bai, Quan Tri, and I got wounded in Hue City.
Do you remember arriving, and what was it like?
Well, I'm glad you asked that question. When I went into the military, I was 17 years old, and like I said, I'd never flown an airplane or any of that. In fact, I've never been out of Illinois. I arrived in Vietnam when I was 18 years old. I remember on the trip over there, we stopped at, from Fort Campbell, Kentucky, we stopped in Seattle, Washington. From Seattle, Washington, we flew to Alaska. From Alaska, we flew to, what's this little island? Guam. From Alaska to Guam, and from Guam, that's when they told us we're now crossing the international state date line. That's where it's nighttime here and it's daytime over there. For some strange reason, a lot of the troops, we ran to look out. We got up to look out the window of the plane, and we're young, 18 years old, figuring that we was going to see a line or something, because now we're crossing the international state date line, and the only thing we seen was the Pacific Ocean, nothing but water. But anyway, when we did cross the international state date line, I remember the crew chief or the pilot saying that we're now entering Southeast Asia. And I remember when I looked out of the window of the plane, I could almost feel that, it seems like the place was, oh, wow, how could I put that in the word? It just seemed strange. It was like this place was so quiet, and I'd never seen a jungle, and it was like I could just sense by looking out the window that, yeah, there's something going on here. You know, some kind of feeling like a strange feeling.
What was your job or assignment?
Well, like I said, my job was I functioned in a infantry unit. What my job was, we would go out on search and destroy missions. Also, we would go out on night ambushes. Also, my job as a forward observer was that I would go out and I would locate the enemy. Once I locate them, I had a radio, a prick 10 radio, and I would call back to the artillery unit, give them a grid coordinates of that area, and I would call in a fire mission on the enemy from the artillery. Another job I had was working with a helicopter assault team. What we would do, we would get, whenever a unit was under attack, we, the 101st Airborne Division, we would go get on helicopters, which we would ride to Huey helicopter. It had the gun shifts. It was easy to carry troops on the Huey helicopter, and we was able to get off the helicopter, exited real quick. What we would do, we would put at least 6 to 8 men on the helicopter, fly into a hot LZ. Well, hot LZ is the landing zone. We might be under fire while we're on that helicopter. Our job is to get off that helicopter and set up a line for firepower to help whatever unit that was in that area out of that situation. A lot of times they would drop us into the very different places in Vietnam where we would go in, locate the enemy, engage the enemy, drive them out, or we would kill as many as we could to do what we needed to do. And also, later on I started going out with recon. It was really they called us lurks. It would be an 8-man team, and we would go out at night, and we would set up ambushes. That's what my job was.
Were there many casualties in your unit?
Yes. The first time I got wounded was the 5th of February, 1968. I was hit with a 122 millimeter rocket that I caught strap metal from. August the 19th, 1969, I was shot 4 times at once. I was medevaced out of Vietnam, and I went to Camp Zama, a 249 General Hospital in Camp Zama, Japan, where I stayed 2 weeks. From Japan, they flew me to Travis Air Force Base in California. From California, I went to Fitzsimmons General Hospital in Denver, Colorado, where I stayed in the hospital a year and 4 months to learn how to walk again. The time that I got wounded, the second time I got wounded, most of my platoon had got killed. They was dead. Only person I remember that was alive was a sergeant. His name was Sergeant Takaban. He was from Hawaii. That was his second tour in Vietnam. But his arm was blown off, and I remember seeing him standing there with his arm missing, and I remember hearing a lot of the voices of people moaning and everything, but it was another guy, a black guy. His name was Stouffer. That was his last name. I can't remember his first name. He was a big old heavy set black guy, but he was like a machine gunner, and he was like maybe 2 or 3 feet from me. And I remember turning around and I looked at him, and he was like, his chest was like blown. It was like a hole all the way through him. You know. But anyway, yes, there was. We had a lot of casualties. 58,000 men lost their life there, and it was probably up in the millions that got wounded. At that time, all the veteran hospitals in this country was overfilled with veterans. Yeah.
Can you tell me about your most memorable experiences?
In Vietnam?
Yeah, or your whole Army experience.
Well, like I said, one of my experience while in the States was jumping out of an airplane and never been in one before. I guess another experience was shooting a lot of the weapons that I qualified for. One of the experiences that I experienced was I got an opportunity to go to other countries, and I had the opportunity to see how blessed we are in this country. Because in going to these other countries, I got an opportunity to see that these people didn't have a lot of the things that we have. They didn't have electricity, TVs, water that you can turn the faucet on, or any of that stuff. So what happened was it made me appreciate living in this country, because when I went to Guam, I seen kids that's born into a country where they don't have anything. They sleep on dirt floors. They live in huts made out of straws. So that had a profound effect on me, because I just felt very, very blessed to be American, that I didn't have to live that way. And in spite of where those kids lived and how they had to live, and they didn't have food, they seemed to be, their spirit seemed to be real joyful people, even though they didn't have all the many things that we have here.
Were you awarded any medals?
Yes, I was awarded the Purple Heart. That was for receiving wounds in Vietnam. Also, I was awarded the Bronze Star. While under fire, one of the guys that I was on LP with, and LP is a listening post. What they did, they sent us out at night, 2 of us, and we was watch to see if any of the enemy is coming into our perimeter. And we would have barbed wire set up around our perimeter, and would be dug in foxholes. Well, me and this guy had to go out, and we are the first contact the enemy make before they can get back to the whole battalion. And what we are to do is, when they make the contact, or when we identify the enemy, we call back into our perimeter and let them know that we have made contact. Then we go back into the perimeter and we prepare ourselves to fight. Well, this one particular night on LP, the guy that was on LP with me, he took a round. He took a gunshot wound. And we had to get back into our lines. And what I did, I took him and put him flat on the ground in the prone position, and I laid on top of him, and I crossed his arms across me, and I rolled over and I crawled back into our perimeter with this guy. And I was awarded the Bronze Star. And I think that was in conjunction with the firefight I was in also, where I survived and I had got wounded. another thing, my unit was awarded the Gallantry Cross, awarded to us by the South Vietnamese government. I also have the Distinguished Service Cross that was awarded to me from while being in combat. I have the Vietnam Campaign Medal, the Good Conduct Medal, and I have my campaign medal. Also, I have jump wings where I successfully completed jump school, which is paratrooper school. What else? That's about it.
Right. How did you stay in touch with your family?
How do I what?
How did you stay in touch with your family?
Well, I tell you, I only wrote my family one time. Prior to going in the military, my father had passed away while I was a young age. I didn't want to write my mother too much because I didn't want to let her know what I was actually dealing with, what I was actually going through. Anyway, I wrote my mother once, and I talked about the water over there. They issued us an iodine tablet. Also, I took a malaria pill every day, especially when I got up north. The iodine tablet was in case we had to drink some of the water. You drop it in your canteen. It doesn't change the color of the water, but it's supposed to kill the bacteria in the water. At the time that I was in Vietnam, pre-sweetened Kool-Aid had just came out. I guess it was just invented. And I remember my family sent me a big old box of pre-sweetened Kool-Aid. And I would take that Kool-Aid and I would pour it in the canteen and shake it up. And at night I would dig a hole and I would bury it. And when the morning came, from the dew sitting in the ground, when the morning came, I had a nice canteen full of pre-sweetened Kool-Aid that tastes very, very good.
What was the food like?
Well, the food, the whole time I was in Vietnam, I ate sea rations. And there was in a can, you get a can of spaghetti or a can of pork and beans with hot dogs in it. And then you get a dessert in the box, and you also got 3 cigarettes in a little box. And I mean, it tastes real good. And these sea rations was dated back from World War II, and I was surprised how fresh and good it was in a can from that long ago. Also, they had what they call K rations. The food was good. Another thing is I didn't like the coffee very much because a lot of the guys drink coffee. The coffee was very, very strong. But a lot of the food that I ate while I was in the States, we have cafeterias and everything in the barracks. Food was okay. It was good food.
Did you have plenty of supplies?
Yes, I have plenty of supplies. The whole time I was in Vietnam, we never ran out of ammunition or anything. They always was able to make a helicopter drop or drop it by plane, whatever supplies we need. One thing I did notice that we was not able to get fresh water or clean water all the time, and we was not able to get hot meals in the jungle. Every now and then we would get a hot meal when I was out there in the jungles fighting. Most of the time we ate sea rations out of a can.
Did you feel pressure or stress?
not until I came. Well, there was one particular time where I felt a lot of stress. I remember Christmas Day of 1967. We was pinned down. We was pinned down in Vietnam, and I remember the Vietnamese. They really like to mess with your head, and they passed out papers. It was like propaganda, trying to demonize the soldiers. And I remember some of the little papers that they had floating around and everything. It was saying, it was speaking of the soldiers. Why are y'all here fighting us? You need to go back home. Stuff like that. Another thing was when I really felt a lot of stress when I was there. The 5th of February 1968, when I said the first time I got wounded, I remember on Martin Luther King's birthday, and the day that Martin Luther King got killed, I was in Vietnam. And I remember this platoon sergeant and everything was talking about Martin Luther King that got killed. When Martin Luther King got killed, I was in combat under fire. And I remember that Martin Luther King believed in nonviolence, and he's a man of my color. He's a black man like myself. And I felt a lot of pressure, a lot of stress from that, because I said, why is this leader, this great man, lose his life? And here I'm in Vietnam fighting for this country that I patronize, that I love, and Martin Luther King got killed. So the way that we honored him, and even the black, the white, the Hispanic soldiers, we all wore black armbands, or we took our bootstring and we braided them, and we wore black wristbands. Some guys braided black crosses or whatever and wore around their neck. And this was in honor of Martin Luther King losing his life while we was over there fighting.
Was there something special you did for good luck?
No. There was nothing special I did, but there was one thing that I did have. This lady where my parents raised me at, she lived on the same floor that we lived in the apartment building. And when I went into the military, they issued us a little Bible. It's the New Testament, and it's a little bitty Bible you can carry right in your pocket. This lady that lives in my building, she had surgery. She had brain surgery, and she survived the brain surgery. And she wore a little cross around her neck when she had her surgery. When she came out of surgery, I seen her, and she said, she knew I was going overseas. She gave me that little cross. She said, Benny, I'm giving you this little cross so you can be protected. So she gave me this cross, and I took this cross, and I put it in that little bitty Bible, the New Testament, and I taped it up, and I put it in my pocket and carried it the whole time I was in Vietnam. I don't know, I guess through walking through the jungles and all that water and everything, the thing got kind of rotten. The tape around it got rotten. One particular time, we was in an area where they had tall grass, which they call elephant grass. Elephant grass is a very tall grass. It's taller, it's 6 feet or more tall. I remember walking in the elephant grass, and I couldn't hardly see in front of me. I had a machete. I would cut my way through. And for some reason, I grabbed my chest, and I wanted to see just see was my Bible there. And I noticed that the cross was not in the Bible anymore. I don't know what made me do this, or what made me even want to pat for the Bible, but I lost the cross. And I don't know where I lost it, at what point I lost it. But anyway, I turned around while I was walking through this grass, and I started walking back. And all of that thick elephant grass on the ground was that little bitty cross. And I picked it up, and I put it back into the Bible. That was unbelievable. And then at that point, I knew I was going to make it back home. Yeah.
How did people entertain themselves?
Okay, well, a lot of guys, well, one thing, when we would come back out of the jungles, we had ration cards. There was little cards that they would punch a hole in, and we was able to get like a 6-pack of beer. And we would sit back and everybody drink a beer and everything and try to forget what we just experienced out there. Guys did various things. Guys listened to music. After you've been in country for X amount of months, you get a break. You get a time that they call R&R, that's rest and recuperation, when you're allowed to go to another country and you have anywhere from 3 to 6 days leave where you can kind of do a little shopping or, just kick back or lay back, So, there was very many different ways that guys entertained themselves. Mostly it was through the music or just being quiet.
What did you do when on leave?
Well, my leave, I wanted to go to Hong Kong with some of my friends, and we was going to buy these tailor-made clothes. They was real cheap over there. We was going to buy shoes and stuff like that. But at the time that the R&R came up for them, I was still in the jungles fighting. So they went on their R&R, and 2 months later I took my R&R and I went to Bangkok, which is in Thailand. And, I had an opportunity to see how the Thai people live, to go to the various different little stores they had and to try the different types of food that they have, which is a lot of rice and fish in just about everything.
Where did you travel while in service?
Well, while in service, I went to maybe 11 or 12 different states in the United States. Also, I got a chance to go to outside. I got a chance to go to Alaska, Guam, Germany, Singapore, Australia, Bangkok, and Korea.
Do you recall any humorous or unusual events?
Well, one thing that I did like is, in visiting those other countries, I got the opportunity to see how other people live and how their cultures was. And I concluded all of that in saying that this country, America, we live in a great country. Because a lot of countries that I visit, the small countries don't have a lot of the stuff that we have. So.
What were some of the pranks that you or others would pull?
I beg your pardon?
What were some of the pranks that you guys would do to each other? like pranks?
Yeah, oh, well, I remember in jump school, the static line, the guys would cut one and they carried it in their pocket, so when the guy hooked up to the static line, they would show him this little hook, like the guy didn't hook his chute up or something, and you jump out the plane. So it was a lot of different things that we did to kind of tease each other. That's one thing that comes to mind. We would play jokes on each other like we say, you got a visitor, and really you didn't have no visitor, stuff like that. It's a lot of different things.
Do you have any photographs?
Well, I used to have photographs. Through the years, moving around and stuff like that, they kind of got away from me. I know I was in the newspaper in Denver, Colorado, where the base commander of that hospital pinned a Purple Heart on me and the Bronze Star. And then I was in the newspaper in Japan, where the doctor that worked there at that hospital for the United States government, he worked on the first person all the way to the 10,000 person, and my number was number 10,000. And they took a photograph of me and him, and they put us in the Japan newspaper, and I never, I just misplaced a lot of stuff through the years.
Can we ask the freedom question right now? We can go back.
Can you tell me what freedom means to you?
Yes. Freedom, what freedom means to me is, like I said, I had the opportunity to visit other places in other countries. What had a profound effect on me was that in some of the countries that I visit, they didn't have the freedom that we have in this country. In this country, we have an opportunity to have our own democracy. We have a constitution that we have the privilege to use. We have a freedom of speech. We have a lot of choices in this country that other countries do not have. I have my freedom in this country. I have an opportunity to live wherever I want to live. We are allowed in this country to have a $200,000 home, a $50,000 car, a $100,000 job, and live in peace. But we forget that it's the veterans that guards the borders of this country. So you're allowed to have all of these things and have the opportunity to make a choice based on what you like for yourself. Other countries do not have that. Why do this exist in this country? Because it's veterans like myself that fight and guard the borders of this country, so you can have the right to go to school, young man, and study and learn whatever you want to learn. One day you'll be able to branch out in this great country, this great nation that we live in, and have an opportunity to have a voice in this country. Other countries are ran by one dictatorship or a one-way philosophy. It's this way or it's no way. We don't have to live like that. In this country, I have a choice to have a God that understands, that I understand and understands me, which I choose to call my God is my Lord Jesus Christ. I have that choice. Other countries don't have that choice. This is a great country, compared to some of the places that I've been to. Yes, this freedom means a lot to me. I never knew what freedom was until I went outside this country and had the opportunity to see how other people live, how kids are born into war, how kids go outside their doors and they have to play in minefields. But these kids are still happy, contented, and can still smile. Here in this country we have so many opportunities, and still we complain about things. But it's still a great country, and if I had to do what I did again, yes, I would go back and I would fight so my family, your family, and all the families could sustain the things that we have in this great country. And one is a free will, a free choice that I have to choose a life for myself.